Alright.
Let's go!
Hello, people of Earth and all other planets. You signed on for another edition of the King's Castle. I'm King James. I'll be your host for the next hour of entertainment news, sports news, whatever. And here to help me, as always, is my crazy but fun-loving colleague, the always reliable and rarely shy Blair Chopin.
Hey, folks.
Good evening, Blair.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Alright, now, this is a very big night around here because it's draft night for the NFL. So, my question to you, Blair, is we know that Josh Norman has signed a big multi-million-dollar contract with the Washington Redskins, which we will talk about later. But tonight I want to focus on the newcomers, the new blood as far as the NFL is concerned. So, my question to you is, who do you see being the early favorites for the first round?
Yeah, so the Los Angeles Rams, now Los Angeles Rams, and
Right.
the Philadelphia Eagles both traded up to the first and second picks, and their plans are to take quarterbacks. The Los Angeles Rams are going to take Jared Goff, a quarterback from California, and the Philadelphia Eagles are actually going to take a quarterback from North Dakota named Carson Wentz. And the funny thing about both these players is we both, before these teams traded up to the first and second picks, we both kind of value them as middle of the round first round picks, or even below that, further than that they were falling, and we didn't even really know who Carson Wentz was until the combine a couple months ago. But it just kind of shows you the emphasis that the NFL is putting on quarterbacks, saying a mediocre quarterback is better than an elite, player at another position. So they're not really drafting the best player available in the first two picks, but they're putting an emphasis on the position of quarterback.
And we've all been talked about, whether it be in college or pro leagues, teams having a rebuilding year.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, out of all the teams in the NFL, who are you most concerned about this season?
I think there's an answer to this that could be right every year. I think it's the Cleveland Browns.
And why is that?
You look at their roster, and you just don't. If there should be a team drafting a quarterback, it should probably be Cleveland. And they traded back in this draft, and when they've traded back in previous drafts, they've really struggled to find players. They traded back in one draft and drafted Johnny Manziel, which was a train wreck. Now they're drafting. Now they signed Robert Griffin III this year, and they're hoping that's the answer at quarterback.
Wow.
I would be shocked if they didn't have the worst record in the NFL. I mean, I'm not saying it could be a 0-win season. I think they'll win one or two games, but there's just not a lot of hope for their roster.
But think about this: when RG3 was with Washington, wasn't he one of the strongest players in the league?
Yeah, he was
before he got injured.
Yeah, he definitely was. RG3 had a great rookie season, and he kind of fell out of step with the first coaching staff there. And then he got knee injuries, and his play and the offensive line play didn't help him last year, and then he was benched for a superior quarterback in Washington, and now he's in Cleveland.
Wow. So he's had quite the roller coaster career for such a young man.
It's interesting because I remember when he first came into the league, and the narrative was we have four really good young quarterbacks. There's RG3, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, and Russell Wilson. And a lot of people, even people locally, were thinking their logic was that Cam Newton was probably the worst out of those quarterbacks. And now that's kind of completely turned around with injuries of play, and he might be the best out of them. And RG3's not even in the conversation with those three guys anymore.
Well, a lot of people would argue that even though he has gotten better over time, Cam Newton's attitude still hasn't changed. And he even admitted after the Super Bowl loss to Denver last season that he is somewhat of a sore loser. He admitted that on camera. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I kind of agree with this point too, that it's supposed to suck. You're not supposed to like losing. And thankfully for us in the past couple of years, with his rapidly improving play, we haven't lost that much. But I would rather have someone who is throwing a hissy fit after losing a game and is taking the loss really hard over someone who's like, oh, they played well and we didn't. And
Why would you want to do that? Because they're more passionate?
yeah,
You think?
that's the kind of people you want on your team. People who actually care. Because a lot of times what happens with these guys is, it's all a business transaction. They're doing a job, and they don't really care if they win or lose. They want to win.
Because they'll get the money anyway.
Right. So, I mean, that spoke volumes to me about Cam in a good way. I think most people are just taking it the wrong way. I saw it as someone who really cares, and I like that he really cares.
You're right. I probably have to agree. Now, the thing is, as I mentioned, with Josh Norman gone,
Right.
we've obviously had to make a sacrifice for an earlier trade. Who would you, if you had to guess, who would you say the Panthers have their eye on in this early going?
It's always tough to tell with the Panthers because, we talked about earlier how the Rams and the Eagles are valuing the position of the quarterback
Right.
more than anything. The Panthers don't do that. They don't take into really account what they need or where they're weak at. So while the logic would be that they would draft a cornerback to replace Josh Norman, they always say they're going to draft the best player available. So if the best player available is a linebacker, and we already have some of the best linebackers in the league, they're going to draft a linebacker. That's what happened last year with Shaq Thompson, and it ended up working out really well. So it's always tough to tell who they're going to draft, but I've heard a lot of reports that they're looking at the Artie Burns kid out of Ohio State, a really fast cornerback to replace Josh Norman. But you have to remember, they drafted Josh Norman in the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily have to draft his replacement tonight. It could happen in much later in rounds or through free agency.
You're right. It very well could. But the thing about it is, with us, I would think a lot of people would be more concerned about our offensive side, or because our defense last year was awesome.
Right.
We were able to keep pounding, as they say, and just keep doing thing after thing to hang on to a winning streak for 14 consecutive games. But our offense really is, in a lot of people's opinion, the only thing to drop the ball. So wouldn't we be more concerned about the offensive than anything else?
Right, and obviously Josh Norman is the biggest loss. I think the Panthers' offense was generally fine last season. I mean, they ranked first in scoring offense.
Right.
Cam was the MVP of the league. And they're going to get one of the best receivers in the NFL back with Kelvin Benjamin. I think if a player like Josh Dotson, a wide receiver from TCU, if he falls to the Panthers at number 30, I think you have to take a look at him. I think he's the best wide receiver in the draft. I think he's a walking YouTube highlight. And I think he's the perfect. He'd give us 3 really good young receivers, along with Greg Olsen, and then I think the Panthers could be like one of the better offensive teams in the league if they got him. But I'm set if there's no player like that available, I don't know if they'll go offense.
It could be. Well, I think we're getting pretty close as far as time for this segment is concerned. So we're gonna take a little break, and we're gonna continue this conversation in the next segment. So stay tuned.
Great job.